All right, so I want to look at the book of Revelation, specifically because it's such an easy book to understand. You know, it's really one of those simple ones. If you're a real learner and you want some supplementary reading and you want a real exhaustive discussion on the letter to the seven churches, you can read a book called Unholy Allegiances by David De Silva. David De Silva, as far as I know, is like the dean of ancient history at Emory University, and he wrote a book about first century Roman government in Asia Minor, and I read it, right? So, which is as you do, and it's about how understanding first century government in Asia Minor in the Roman Empire helps us understand the book of Revelation as a book that was intended for that day and not primarily something about the future, and then what that means for us now in terms of how revolutionary that is. All right, so let's look at this. I just picked one of the seven churches. This is a passage that's a part of the letter to the seven churches. The book of Revelation was originally a letter written in apocalyptic form. There's a lot of symbolism in it, all of this stuff, but it was really just a letter that got circulated to seven places, and nobody ever thought we'd still be reading it and trying to decipher it, or I think they'd be a little bit more clear in what they were talking about. So obviously, John's audience is understanding certain things that we need to dig into to be able to understand it. So I want to do that for us tonight. My goal is to make Scripture bigger. Anytime I speak, I want Jesus to get bigger. I want the cross to work better. I want the resurrection to be central. I want Scriptures to get bigger, not smaller. So with that in mind, here we go. This is Revelation chapter 3, verse 1. To the angel of the church in Sardis, write this: these are the words of him who holds the seven spirits of God and the seven stars. So let's just stop right there. There's so much going on in that passage. The first 70% of this message is going to be a history lesson, okay? So I'm going to tell you some history stories because there's so much going on. If you're a note taker, you want to note Sardis, you want to note seven spirits of God, and you want to note seven stars. So I'm going to walk through all of those, not necessarily in that order. So here's a quick history lesson. If you're thinking, oh no, Shane, stop, I hate history. I think the Ottoman Empire is a furniture store. Give me a second, okay? It might have been your history teacher. I think I can rescue this for you. So when John says this is the testimony of him who holds the seven spirits of God, that's simply a Jewish way of talking about the Messiah, that the seven spirits of God, and you might be thinking, there's only one spirit of God. Okay, but in Isaiah, it says the Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom, understanding, counsel, power, knowledge, fear of the Lord. So when John says this is the testimony of him who holds the seven spirits of God, that's a Jewish way of saying this is one who holds the anointing that's perfectly balanced of wisdom, understanding, counsel, power, knowledge, fear of the Lord. In our world, and in his world, he would be saying this is the testimony of Jesus the Messiah, the one who holds the seven spirits of God. But there's something very, very subversive going on here. This is the one who holds the seven spirits of God, Messiah, and the seven stars. Now, to understand this, we've got to understand the first century reign of a guy named Domitian. Domitian was the Caesar who put John on the island of Patmos and banished him there. He's the guy in charge of the whole world when John wrote this letter. And there was all this propaganda around Domitian. Everything in the Roman Empire was about the propagation of something called the Imperial cult. The idea that Caesar is not just a man, he is fully God in flesh. One Roman historian and poet put it this way, that in the name of Caesar, no other name on earth by which men can be saved. For in Caesar is the fullness of God incarnate in human form. This was the Roman cult. This was the propagation. The Roman Empire did not believe Caesar was simply a man. They believed he was God in flesh. And that one of the ways that they did that was they had to get the message from Spain to India that Caesar was God in flesh. Now, how do you do that? How do you get a message from Spain to India that your guy is God in flesh with no printing press, no internet, no social media, no news? Town criers are highly unreliable. How would anybody know when a message actually came from the government and when it was actually fake news, as if that's not relevant today? How would you know that? Well, the way the Roman Empire did it is if it was real and certified, they printed it on official currency, on money. If you want to know what was going on in the Roman Empire in the first century, look at the coins. The coins tell the story. And so one of the propaganda around Domitian was they said Domitian is God in flesh, and he sits on top of the world holding the 7 stars in place that keep the worlds in their proper place. Let me show you. Let me show you the coin on this. This is Domitian, and presumably as the Gerber baby, but nonetheless, he's and as you can see on that coin, it's hard to see this because it's in Latin, but it says Domitian around the left side, and up the right side it says God saves. So Domitian, God saves, and that's him sitting on top of the world, and he's juggling the 7 stars. So when John says this is the testimony of the one who holds the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars, this is not something to just read over. This is in your face oppressive literature saying, hey, Domitian claims to be the one holding the 7 stars. No way. Our guy is the one holding the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. This is the guy who was banished to the island of Patmos going, in your face, Domitian. You're not going to get the last word here. Now, if you are claiming to be God in flesh, the question is, which God is filling you? So, Domitian said that he was God in flesh, and he was filled with the spirit of a male god named Jupiter and a female goddess named Roma. Roma. So, Domitian said, I am filled with the spirit of the male god Jupiter, the god of valor, war, and victory. And through that spirit, we will have peace through victory. The problem is Roman Empire conquered the whole world under oppressive boot. So it was only peace through victory if you happen to be Roman. But let me show you the coins on this. So this is the Domitian. You got a good picture of the image of Domitian on the left there, and you can see his name actually written into the coin. On the tail side of the coin, that is Jupiter, the god of valor, courage, war, and victory, through whom we have peace through victory. But the female goddess was the goddess Roma. Let me show you a coin about her. So there is the goddess Roma there. You could see her name. You can see her name at the bottom right there. There's Roma. You could see she is the goddess of virtue and justice. And so all the coins on Roma have her coming into Rome on horseback. You can see she's riding on horseback. She is holding the scales of justice there. And if you count that, there are 7 hills behind that. Rome is called the city of 7 hills. So do you see where, like in the book of Revelation, where John says, and I saw a great whore descending on a horse to the city of 7 hills. This is not something to be taken literally, like we're looking for a whore coming down out of the sky. Because let's just be frank, there's nothing scarier than a whore on a horse. Right? No. This is a guy, this is in your face stuff, right? Essentially, John's saying, hey, the spirit of the goddess that fills Domitian, they tell you she's the goddess of virtue and justice, but not only is she not virtuous, she's the opposite of virtuous. She's a whore. This is like in your face stuff. This is a guy banished to the island of Patmos going, these guys are full of it. You guys need to take heart. These guys will no way get the last word because they are not what they claim to be. Goddess of virtue and justice, look around you. Does the world look full of justice and virtue under the Roman rule? No way. She must not be the goddess of virtue and justice. She must be a whore. This is like so cool and entertaining. This is not a boring sort of, oh, let's get through this. No. This is amazing. Now, Domitian is so narcissistic, right? Are you guys bored? Okay, good. All right, so Domitian is so narcissistic that he says, hey, since I'm fully God in flesh, I should be worshiped. And I want to be worshiped through money. So here's what he did. The center of mercantilism in the first century was a place called the Agora in Ephesus. It's where we get the word agoraphobia from. It's the fear of the marketplace. It was the central marketplace. It was where if you were from the east, you could come from China, India, places like that. You could buy, sell, and trade with those from the west, and then you would take those goods and stuff back to your native places. So here's what he did. He said, since I'm the Son of God, I should be worshiped. So before you could buy and sell in the Agora, you had to first give an offering to Domitian to honor him as the Son of God, filled with virtue, justice, courage, valor, and victory. Here's what he did. Around the Agora, he built 4 ecclesias to his honor. Churches. And to poke fun at the Jews, he put his 10 mightiest deeds on 2 stone tablets. Essentially, you got your 10, I got mine, right? It was that. Now, here's what he did to prove his point. Outside of the Agora was an outdoor pantheon of the gods. So all the gods of the Roman Empire were in this outdoor pantheon of the gods. So what he did is to prove his dominance, he put a roof over the top of the pantheon of the gods. And then on top of the roof, he put a 28-foot statue of himself. And he said, see, not only am I the King of Kings, I am also the Lord of Lords. And if I wasn't the God above all gods, then those gods would have stopped me. But since they let me build my image above theirs, it proves that I am the God of gods. Now, the whole world bought this except for a small little culture of people called the Jews, because they thought they were just dead statues anyway. So they came up with a nickname for Domitian. They called him the beast who comes from land and sea, because no matter whether you came by land or by sea, that 28-foot statue was the first thing you saw. So before you could buy and sell, from 78 AD to 92 AD, you had to give an offering to Domitian. Here's the problem with that. How do you police it? Here's what he did. He built 4 ecclesias around the Agora, and he appointed 2 acolytes, witnesses, who would watch people coming in from wherever they come from, and they would first have to walk in, give their offering to Domitian as the Son of God before they could go buy and sell. But somehow you had to let the managers of the Agora know these people had done their duty. So here's what they would do. The acolytes, when they witnessed the offering, they would give the people a mark in their forehand or in their forehead as a way of saying they have done their deed. Think of it as like an ID check in a bar. You got the wristband, you've been ID checked, you can now buy drinks. It's that. So they would mark them in their forehand or in their forehead, and it was an ancient way of saying we have witnessed these people give their offering to Domitian. So from 78 AD to 92 AD, before you could buy and sell in the Agora, you had to first take the mark of the, yes, relax everybody. It's already happened. Now, here's the thing, okay? It's a historical fact. Now, here's the thing, right? Because none of you look bored, I'm gonna keep going here. Here's what happened, right? So Domitian gets this revelation. He says, hang on. All the other gods have an Olympic-style games to their honor, and I don't. So Domitian instituted a biannual celebration of his deity in an Olympic-style games, and he humbly called it the Domitian Games. Now, tell me where this sounds familiar, everybody. Here's what he did. To prove his dominance over the Roman Empire, he divided the Roman Empire into 12 districts, and he forced all 12 districts to give up 2 delegates to come to the capital city to compete in the Domitian Games. Is this sounding familiar? The only district absolved from the responsibility of providing 2 delegates was, you guessed it, the capital city. Because if you were a member of the Roman capital city, you were given special citizenship and you were guaranteed a living wage based on excessive taxation of everybody else. And that living wage, and this is true, was called the dole. True. Now, here's the thing. Absolutely a fact. Now, here's the thing, right? So 24 young people would come from the 12 districts to compete in the Domitian Games that was held in the Roman Colosseum. Now, Domitian wanted to create the greatest choir ever created to sing his praises at the Domitian Games. So, when you attended the Domitian Games, every person was given two things, a white robe and a gold crown, so that he could create the greatest choir ever created to sing his praises. When the kickoff ceremony happened, the entire Roman Colosseum would stand up with their white robes and gold crowns and say, "We praise you, O Domitian, O Son of God, for you alone are worthy of all honor and glory and power and blessing. We praise you, O Domitian, O Son of God, for you alone are worthy of all honor and glory and power and blessing." And after the song, they would cast down their golden crowns at his feet. Think about your Roman Empire movies, the Caesar standing there and they're throwing things at his feet. Oh, by the way, Caesar employed 24 people to follow him around and tell him how good he was. Think about the book of Revelation. He says, "And I saw the 24 elders sitting around the throne." That's what we see all the time. "And we were given white robes and gold crowns, and we were casting down our golden crowns around the glassy sea, but we were singing a new song." In other words, I've seen how this ends, and Domitian doesn't get the last word. Jesus does. Now, the Domitian Games, everybody dies until the final four. The final four, the final episode of the Domitian Games, when you got down to 4 delegates, was a 4-horse race of 4 horses of a different color where people cheered for their team. Think Ben-Hur, right? And they'd go around until everyone was dead except one. And they were declared the champion of the Domitian Games and given honorary citizenship to the capital city, Rome. Unbelievable. If you're paying attention, there are now 23 dead bodies on the Roman Colosseum floor. The last scene of the Domitian Games was 2 characters, one called Death and one called Hades, wearing masks, coming in on horseback, cleaning up the dead bodies. And I saw Death and Hell descending on a horse. This went on from 78 AD to 92 AD. In 93 AD, a young lady from District 12 took on the capital city with a bow and arrow and ended the Domitian Games. Now, yes, I made that last part up. The last part is utterly fiction. Everything else was true. Now, this is the world of Domitian that John is living in. This is the testimony of him who holds the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. Now, Sardis. Sardis was an important part of the Lydian Empire of Persia. It was on the main road from Ephesus to the main parts of Asia Minor. It was the main thing of buying and selling. It was built as 2 parts, a lower city and an upper city, on a 1,500-meter high rock face. The only thing I've ever seen that's like this in New Zealand is Cape Kidnappers. Cape Kidnappers is really high on these rock faces, and somebody built an awesome golf course up there. That's Sardis. Sardis is a city up that high, making it impossible to attack. So all the Roman archives were held there. It was the central, they would hide their gold reserves there. It was this was an impenetrable sort of thing. Now, Sardis got its groove on under the rule of Croesus. Now, Croesus is one of the richest people who's ever lived. What he actually has, who knows? But when you're considered one of the richest people who ever lived, it's just pretty cool. Actually, still to this day, the phrase rich as Croesus is a thing. People might say, oh, they're rich as Croesus. That just means they're really, really rich. It was the first place in the world to master the art of spinning wool. This was an amazing invention at the time. But movies set before Croesus, that's when people are wearing whole animals. Croesus had this idea. Here's what he said. He's like, you know what? If we shear the sheep and spin the wool into cloth, then the next year the sheep grow more wool and we can shear them again. And it's like a renewable energy source, right? And the Kiwis are like, well, we figured that out a long time ago, right? Now, so Croesus figured this out. Then he was also the first person to master the art of minting coin in such a way that standardized the amount of gold and silver in each coin. Before Croesus, you didn't know who was playing games about what was in the coin. So they had to go through all these tests. There was counterfeiting problems. There was false weights and measures. It was a real problem. So Croesus standardized the art of standardizing the amount of gold and silver in each coin, which meant what? The whole world was going to look to him to print their money, and who's going to get a small cut on every coin printed? Croesus. This guy is unbelievable. It gets better. After that, they discovered the largest deposit of gold ever found in the history of the world under the upper city. So if you're paying attention, Croesus masters the art of minting money and then finds the biggest deposit of gold ever under his backyard. This is unbelievable. Now, this creates a problem, right? Everybody now wants what's in Sardis. The problem is it's 1,500 meters high up a straight rock face. So no matter what you do, you can't conquer Sardis because you'd be covered from an elevated position. So here's what Croesus did. Croesus put a 40-foot high wall on top of the 1,500-meter rock face, and he famously called Sardis the impenetrable city. Here's the problem. It kept being penetrated. In 546 BC, Cyrus the Persian attacked and plundered the city with a surprise attack. Here's how it worked, right? There was a guy that was in the army, and his job was to watch the wall of Sardis. Now, would you agree with me, if your job is to watch the wall of an impenetrable city, that is literally the most boring job on earth. The way the story goes is he was sitting on the wall, and he fell asleep, and his head started bobbing, and his helmet fell off. And it went on the wrong side of the wall and pummeled 1,500 meters down to the valley below. Instead of going back to the platoon and getting a new helmet or making up a story about playing with it or whatever, he didn't want to get in trouble. So what he did is he snuck down to the valley below to fetch his helmet through a secret passageway dug for the military only that bypassed the wall through the middle of the city out into the valley below. Here's what had happened. Cyrus the Persian sent 2 spies to find a way into Sardis, and he told them, don't come back until you find a way in. And they watched and they watched and they watched, and they couldn't find a way in. And so what happened is when this guy's helmet fell off because he fell asleep, and he went down through a secret passageway from the middle of the city bypassing the wall, he unknowingly revealed the entranceway to the middle of the city, which bypassed the wall, to the Persian spies. So in 546 BC, what happened is they knew they couldn't conquer Sardis. That's ridiculous. What they did is they waited for everybody in Sardis to fall asleep, and they sent a small platoon of special forces soldiers up through that secret passageway, bypassing the wall, and they robbed the city blind in the middle of the night while they were asleep. Now, in 398 BC, Antiochus the Great performed a surprise attack through the same exact tunnel. So once everyone had died that forgot about that, people got complacent again, and they did it again. In 334 BC, Alexander the Great did it again. Now let me just stop and point this out. Is Hamilton, New Zealand that much unlike Sardis? I don't think so, minus a lot of debauchery, which I'll get to in a second. Hamilton, New Zealand is safe, secure. You're protected by United Nations military might. Like if someone attacked you, the United States would be here in 30 seconds. And thank God for that, because I think you have 1 plane, okay? But honestly, but you're safe. If someone threatens you, you have O or 111 or whatever it is you call. You have police. You have a judicial system. You have military protection. You have a welfare system that's in the top 5 welfare systems in the world. You take care of sick people as good as anybody in the world. Like in a place of affluence and protection, it is easy to get complacent and fall asleep at the wall, not knowing someone's fixing to rob you blind. I think we have a lot to learn about this. Now, that's the political history of Sardis. Here is the religious history. The religious rule. Sardis was dominated by the religious rule of a goddess named Cybele. She was the daughter of Zeus and twin of Apollo. She was also known as Artemis or Diana somewhere else. I found a picture of Cybele. Let me show you. Here it is. Right here's Cybele. There she is. Isn't she lovely? Is it? She's the goddess of fertility, obviously, because she's got plenty of nutrients there, you know, for the whole world. She's got enough nourishment to nourish all of creation. And let's just be honest, even when they're 3,500 years old and made of stone, a 20-breasted woman is just awesome, right? She was the goddess of fertility. She was also the goddess of the hunt. So in other words, it didn't matter how rich you were, you got to go find food. So before you went on a hunt to find meat for your family, here's what you'd do. You'd go by the temple of Cybele, You'd offer Kibble an offering and ask her to bring animals into your sight so you could find animals to feed your family. Here's the problem. She was the goddess of the hunt, but she was also the goddess in charge of protecting small animals. So there was a conflict of interest. So here's what happened, right? There was a famous famine that happened in Sardis, right? And it doesn't matter how rich you are. If you can't find food, you can't find food. It's not like they had commercial farming back then, right? So think about this, right? If you're a man in Sardis, right, and you can't find food, who do you assume you've ticked off? Kibble. So what they did is they kept showing up and giving more money and giving more money and more money. And what they realized is their money wasn't going to do it. And that's the one thing they had plenty of, is money. And so here's what they did. The men of Sardis assumed that they had ticked Kibble off. So how, as a group of men, do you prove to a woman that you're loyal to her? Here's what they did. They showed up at the temple of Kibble, and in one religious frenzy, 1,500 men self-castrated, and they offered their testicles on the altar of Kibble as a burnt offering to say, we are loyal to you, please give us food. Oh, by the way, in 1908, archaeologists found the temple of Kibble, and it is now a tourist attraction in modern-day Turkey. So if you're ever on a tourist tour of modern-day Turkey and you come across the altar of Kibble, don't sit on it. It's got history, okay? It's got history. Now, let me stop and make a point here. Paul built a thriving church there. And you thought Hamilton was hard. God, you don't understand how hard it is to build a church in New Zealand. New Zealand's so anti-Christian. What are you talking about? Are you kidding me right now? Come on. Paul built a thriving church with that in his backyard. And let me be clear, he never said one thing bad about her. How do we know that? Because it's written down. Where? In Acts 19. In Acts 19, they don't know what to do with him because he's building a successful church in this town. And they don't know what to do. You say, man, how would you build a church of Jesus with that kind of stuff going on? Easy. You come in and you go, hey, everybody, I serve a God that loves you just because. He'll feed you just because he loves you, and you can keep all your bits intact. Come with me. Paul realized that you don't build a church by being against her. You build a church by making Jesus famous for his kindness and his love. So here's what they do. They have him arrested in Acts 19, and they bring him in front of the pagan judge in Ephesus. And they say, you got to do something about this guy. And the judge in Ephesus says, what do you want me to do with him? For he has not robbed our temple, nor has he blasphemed our goddess one time. In other words, Paul went into there and built a thriving church without saying one bad thing about her, which leads me to this challenge. Could we do that? I am sick and tired of the smallness of the view of God of Christianity. Christians panicking, oh God, what are we going to do? The election's coming. What if the right person doesn't win? What's he going to do? Oh, and I think God's like, are you kidding me right now? We overcame Sardis. Let me give you a quick history of God. He overcame the Egyptian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, the Roman Empire, the Dark Ages. I think he can handle the Labor Party, right? He's not up in heaven going, oh no, Labor's in again. What are we gonna do? Oh dear God, oh me, oh my. What? No. Christians in Melbourne panicking. Did you hear? They took the Lord's Prayer off the Parliament House. What are we gonna do? Hello, if the Lord's Prayer is not in people's heart, putting it on a plaque on a wall is not going to change one thing. Come on. Jesus is like, bro, we overcame Sardis. Hamilton is no problem. Fielding's no problem. Capity's no problem. What are you talking about? We overcame that. This world's infinitely better than it's ever been, and we get to be a part of it. How awesome is this? Now, that is the geopolitical and historical history of Sardis as I know it. Let's see if that helps us understand what it says. I know your deeds. You have a reputation for being alive, but you're actually dead. Wake up, strengthen what remains and is about to die. For I have found your deeds unfinished in the sight of my God. Remember, therefore, what you have received and heard. Hold it fast and repent. But if you do not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know at what time I will come to you. This is a city that had a history of falling asleep and thieves robbing them blind. This is making total sense to them, right? Yet you have a few people in Sardis who've not sold their clothes. They will walk with me dressed in white, for they are worthy. The one who is victorious will like them be dressed in white. I will never blot out that name of that person from the book of life, but will acknowledge that name before my Father and his angels. Whoever has ears, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. Now, to the best of my ability, I just told you in 30 minutes what happened. Now let's ask a bigger question. What's happening in me right now because of it, and what am I going to do about it? I think a couple things. I think first that Hamilton and New Zealand is not much different than Sardis, minus the castrating religious festivals and the big open-aired sexual immorality stuff. Obviously, whatever the worst thing going on in Hamilton is tonight, it's Nickelodeon compared to Sardis, okay? Other than that, I think our affluence, I think our security, I think our basic safety can lead us to being apathetic at the wheel. And so I think this applies. And I think we need to act in a couple areas. One, wake up. What are you doing? What are you doing? You can't rest on what we've done yesterday. There are still infinite possibilities when we woke up this morning to partner with the risen Christ to change our world for the better. What are you doing? Don't you fall asleep at this wheel. It's not like we're done. Is the world better than it's ever been? Absolutely. Are we done? Not even close. There is still a world of infinite possibilities out there for us to make our world a better place while partnering with the work of the Spirit of the risen Christ to do it. We need to wake up. I would say it. Secondly, your deeds are not yet finished. Your life still has infinite possibilities to it. You are not done. Yes, that tragedy hit you, but you are not done. Yes, that divorce happened, but you are not done. Yes, you lost that business, but you are not done. Your deeds are not yet finished. Where have we gotten complacent, looking around at our world going, well, this is what it is, and you know, it's a pretty good world. No. We can never be so insulated in a wonderful place like New Zealand that we lose sight of the plight of the poor and the afflicted in other places, that we don't do our part to make their life better, to be resurrection, to never be people simply staring at the sky, wanting God to do something for us, but getting about what God wants us to do for this world. We need to wake up because our deeds are not yet finished. Third, remember and hold it fast. This is a reference to an ancient rabbinical teaching on the role of a disciplined imagination. What they say is that a fleeting imagination or vision will not hurt you nor help you. So if you have a fleeting destructive thought, well, whatever. Like if you have a fleeting lustful thought, not going to hurt you. It won't. Everybody has them, or they're lying, okay? A fleeting lustful thought, not going to harm you if it just comes and goes. But if you discipline that vision and you discipline that imagination and you objectify that person in your imagination over and over and over and over again, eventually that thing takes root in our heart and becomes a problem. The same is true with positive things. If you just have a new vision from God every week, you're never going to accomplish anything. Oh, I got a big thing. And then the next week, oh, I got a big thing. And the next week, it's like, oh, I got a big thing. No. No, people who actually make a difference are people who can discipline their imagination despite the gap between what they see and what they're experiencing, and they hold it fast. They remember it and they hold it fast. And here's the thing. Here's what happens. For good-hearted people, the white noise of our week can make the whole thing fuzzy, and we can lose the voices of the infinite possibilities that God has for our life at the expense of white noise. And my prayer for you tonight is that you wake up, you hold it fast, and that you can cancel the white noise long enough to remember the infinite possibilities that God called us to and hold it fast and get back to it. Get back to it. The white noise needs to go down, and the voice of the Spirit of God and what He's called us to do in this world needs to go up. I think number 4 is repent. It's just, repentance is not a shame-based word. It's not being sorry. It's actually, should actually be a lifestyle for everybody. It just means to turn around and relearn things, to return to that dream, to get back to it. Maybe you've been discouraged. See, here's what I know. When we all first came to God, we were excited about the infinite possibilities in God. But then life happens. Actually, and quite frankly, sometimes the absurd happens. And I mean really absurd. Like, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see her leaving me. I didn't see him leaving. I didn't see illness striking me. I didn't deserve it. I didn't do anything like that. Why is this happening? What happens is we start off with infinite possibilities, and then disappointment, discouragement, white noise, it starts to cancel that. And my prayer is that there'll be a revival tonight, but not a revival in the, hey, let's have, I mean a reviving of the voices of the infinite possibilities that God has for us, and we are called to return to that. I think the 5th thing is this, is we should be encouraged by each other. There's this odd statement. He's like, wake up, I'll come like a thief, right? And there's all this stuff that makes sense. And then there's this odd statement. Hey, look around. There's lots of people who haven't sold their clothes. That's odd. That's just an odd statement in the flow of that sentence. Why? Well, I think we read it from our perspective, but put yourself in their perspective. First of all, it was illegal to be a Christian in the 1st century. If you got caught, they killed you. Nero would kill you by impaling you with a stick, covering you in pitch, and setting you on fire to keep his backyard alight. Okay? Some people say, man, we need to get back to the 1st century. No, we don't. Or, man, this world's getting bad these days. No, it's not. Okay? So, and by the way, Christians in the 1st century were executed, and the charge, and this is true, was atheism. 1st century Christians were atheists. Why? Because they didn't practice Judaism. They said, no, God's bigger than that. But they didn't honor the Roman gods either. So when the Roman officials say, are you Judaizers? No, we think God's bigger than that. But you're not Roman God people either. No, well then you're atheist. You don't believe in anything we believe in. And if you're an atheist, that could be dangerous to our culture. Because if your message got off that God just loves people just because he loves people, we might lose our ability to control people with spiritual guilt and profiteer on it. And so we're going to have to kill you now. That's what it was. So here's the thing, right? You couldn't walk around telling people you were a Christian in the 1st century. You had to come up with all these creative ways of identifying yourself to others. Like you might draw half a fish in the ground. And if they draw another half, then you know you're safe. Or you might, check this out, you might actually have to watch your neighbor for months and see how they live, and then determine based on how they live, not what they say they believe, but how they actually live, whether they're a follower of Jesus or not. Now, you live in Sardis. There's public sexual immorality going on in the public square as a celebration of Qibla. There's self-castration. There's debaucherous parties. Could you imagine trying to live for Jesus in a place like that? And you can't say, this is what we believe around here. You can't post it on Facebook. In that sense, I think we should get back to it. That we should quit hitting send. We should quit hitting post, and we should start just demonstrating it with our life. Right? You might actually start believing that you're by yourself. If you were in Sardis, you might actually start believing I'm the only one here. And John says, actually, look around. Lots of people. There's lots. Because there's nothing worse to kill the infinite possibilities than loneliness. Loneliness is the first thing in the whole Bible God says that's not good. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Hey, that's good. That's good. Oh, no, that's not good. And the topic was loneliness. Why? Because loneliness disempowers the voices of the infinite possibilities. And here's what happens with us, right? When the possibilities in God diminish in our head, we start to feel lonelier than ever before. And here's the problem with a church like this. This is the problem. Your worship atmosphere tonight was, for me, beyond fantastic, particularly in that second song where everybody was clapping in unison and it felt like the whole place was shaking, right? And I love that. And there is a way that you could come to a church like this and authentically experience the presence of God, truly and authentically and meaningfully. But when you leave, you feel lonelier than ever before. And so I want to stop and I want to point out that you are not alone. Look around you. My challenge and my altar call tonight is this, is that before you leave here tonight, that you'll allow the spirit of encouragement to come over you and that you will give a person, encouragement is something everybody can do, and it's something that no matter how you do it, everyone will like it. That before you leave here tonight, you take a step of bravery and you say a word of encouragement to somebody. It could be something simple like, I want you to know you're a good mom. I want you to know that. I want you to know that you're a good dad. I want you to know you're going to get through this illness. I want you to know I can't fix it, but I am there for you. We are going to be in this thing together. I want you to affirm with each other that you are not alone. And don't be super spiritual with it. Don't make your left eye twitch when you do it. Just be encouraging. Here, I'll demonstrate it, okay? Sheridan's my friend and Jan's my friend, right? And I want them to know that I'm with them. We're low maintenance friends because we have to be, but they're not alone. I'm in this with them. I am in this with them. And you know what? If they ever needed me, I'm one plane ride away. I'm one plane ride, actually, I'm a 1 hour plane ride followed by a 6 hour plane ride followed by a 12 hour plane ride followed by a 1 hour plane ride. So in that sense, you're alone for one day. But you are not alone. See, the power of that, let me just show you this, because one more thing here. This is 1 Kings. There's a guy named Elijah, and he's thinking he's by himself. He says, I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and put your prophets to death with the sword. I'm the only one left. And now they're trying to kill me. What a devastating place to be. Hear the despair in that. There's no more possibilities for me. I'm the only one left, and they're going to kill me. Watch what God says to him. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal. In other words, I don't need to change your reality, bro. I need to help you change what you're seeing. Look around, 7,000. I bless you tonight, my brothers and sisters, to not just be people on your way to heaven, but be people who wake up. Know your deeds are not yet finished. Hold it fast. Remember the voices of the infinite possibilities and return to them. Let the white noise of urgency decrease and let the possibilities increase by being encouraged by each other, because you are not alone. Thank you so much for being so kind to me tonight. I know I went a little overtime. Grace and peace, everybody. God bless.